Welcome to Kelly's Christian Chaos, where we dive into tough topics, explore the chaos of Christian living, and celebrate the transformative power of Jesus in our lives. And here's your host, Kelly.
Hey guys, welcome to the first official episode of Kelly's Christian Chaos.
That's a good name.
Thank you. We are starting our series here. It is called Metalheads in Music Ministry, and this is our very first episode. And what better way to start this series off with the one, the only Magdalene Rose. That's her right there. Super excited to have her as a guest. I met you, let's see, about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit now. I found GFM, the band that you were in before with your sisters. Loved it. Listened to you guys for about a month and then you broke up. And I cried for like a month straight. But then, you know, you're like, yo, I'm going to do a solo career. And I was like, I'm on board. I was there. It was
the very first tour that I ever did by myself.
Yeah, and I brought my daughter Echo, and it was pretty amazing. So yeah, super excited to have her here. We are going to get into some deep questions, but you know, this is my podcast, so there's going to be some chaos. Mm-hmm. We're going to start with some icebreaker questions to kind of lighten the mood first, and then we'll dive deep after. So are you ready for your first one?
I am.
Okay.
I'm a little nervous now. I wasn't given a warning on this one. She said this one had to be a surprise.
So, if you were any character in Shrek, who would you be?
Oh my word.
Personality-wise, not who you would want to be.
Okay. Who I like feel like I am. I feel like my first instinct is to say Puss in Boots, but I feel like I am not that brave. Like maybe on stage, yeah. I have like the finesse, but in real life, I don't know. I feel like sometimes maybe I'm the gingerbread man.
He's still cool. He stands up for himself.
He stands up for himself sometimes, but then he's like, help! And I feel like that's me.
I would want to say, like, I would be like Fiona or like the dragon, you know, got the mama bear fierceness, but no, I'm most definitely Donkey.
Do you like waffles?
I love waffles. I love waffles. Waffles over pancakes any day.
They had the little pockets so you could put extra filling.
Exactly. You get it. But yeah, I'm the loyal friend. I'm also can be very annoying. I got that ADHD vibe, you know. But I would, you know, take a bullet for someone. Yeah. So like, and I'm super funny, so you know, probably Donkey would be the best answer for me. But all right, you ready for number 2? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you could pick any universe to be in, what would you pick? Like Marvel, DC, Star Wars, a video game universe, like something like that. Which would universe?
Goodness. I feel like this is so difficult. I don't know, because I'm a big nerd when it comes to both movies and book stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's all across the board. Like, I like sci-fi stuff, but I also am, like, all in on the fantasy, like, medieval times type stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would be a terrible time to live in because there's no, like, modern anything there.
It'd be tough.
We're watching Vampire Diaries right now, and I honestly, like, am such a teenage girl when it comes to anything vampires, but I feel like that's also awful because then you just are always dying. Like, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like this universe is pretty good, but people don't have superpowers, so that's like the con. I don't know. That's a hard one.
You like anime? What about an anime universe?
I do like anime. I don't know. There's too many.
I know.
I feel like maybe what's the new, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but this movie's been out for a while, the like Into the Spider-Verse where he can jump across the different universes, maybe that, so that I can live in each different one.
That would be cool.
I feel like that's a loophole.
That's a good one. Yeah, I would most definitely, if you know me, you know what I'm about to say. I honestly thought you were going to say Twilight. But
I'm telling you, when it comes to anything vampires, I am the biggest teenage girl. I'm like,
that's fair. But I would most definitely say Star Wars, 100%. You got lightsabers, you got
You're in space.
Space, you can go through like hyperspeed and
Yeah.
like everything. Yeah, would be pretty sick. Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, you know, we got the chaos part. We need the Christian part. We need to bring a little Jesus into it now. So, favorite person from the Bible and why?
Okay.
But you can't pick Jesus.
I can't pick you. That's a cheat answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
I really like the story of Ruth and Boaz.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because I feel like even in mine and Blaze's like little relationship compared to literally everything else out there, subconsciously I would find myself doing things like she did, like even just not even thinking about it. As being in a band, traveling, like it's obviously there's boundaries that are hard to keep because everything is so secluded into one little spot. And then even like when venues get you hotel rooms and the bus has to get worked on, you know, venues don't always get rooms for each individual person because that's a lot of money. And so a lot of the times me, Blaze, and his parents would share a room. And so if there wasn't a pull-out couch, either like he would sleep on the floor so I could have my own bed, or he would sleep and I would sleep at the foot of the bed and my feet would be by his head. And like I would just do that subconsciously so we would keep our boundaries.
Yeah.
But then literally like after me doing that a few times, I'm like, wait, like Ruth did this exact same thing. Like she was commanded to go sleep at his feet.
Yeah.
To like let him understand like I want to be with you. I want you to be able to take care of me, and if that's not your thing, like I'll be okay with that. And so I think that's really cool to be able to see like she was willing to do whatever she had to listen to God, and God blessed her for that. And so she was able to be part of the bloodline for Jesus too. So
that's a really cool that's a really cool perspective. Like I love that story too, and just how it came from tragedy to just like you said, being part of Jesus' bloodline because of her loyalty and her commitment to her mother-in-law. Like that's crazy. I would definitely say I love Esther's story.
Yeah.
Her boldness to like, I mean, you got to think in that time period, like nobody could speak in the king's court unless they were called on, let alone a woman.
Yeah.
Like that was.
Women couldn't even speak anywhere.
Exactly. Like for her boldness to just step out and save all her people, like that's crazy. I would identify most with Moses, and let me explain. I'm not like speaking highly of myself. Let me explain. Just the way that I went into ministry, I asked those questions. Like, why me? I can't do this.
Find somebody else.
Yeah, I can't. Like, I literally was like, I've never even spoke on a microphone. Like, I can't do these things. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good. Like, I literally did all those things, and God was like, no, you. Like, so like reading through his whole story, like, I don't know. I remember the first time reading it, I was like, whoa, that's definitely like my story. So I love his story, and I love, and I mean, Mary Magdalene.
She's a pretty, like, kicking butt, taking names type woman.
For sure. Isn't that who you're...
I am named after her.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. That was the last little fun question I had for you. So we'll start to kind of dive deep here. And I wanted to explain this series first. So again, I've got the privilege to get to know you and Seventh Day Slumber. I lost count of how many concerts I've been to now. But each time I've got to see like your guys' heart, get to know your personalities, just see your ministry come alive in each one of your concerts. And I've also seen hurt. I've seen hurt that you guys have gone through. And like, I've never been in a band or anything like that, but I have most definitely been discriminated against because of my looks, because of, you know, the style I am and everything. And it kind of broke my heart. And I see it in more than just you guys. It happens everywhere, you know? And so my heart behind this story is to give the listeners a perspective of, one, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. And two, to get to know the people and their heart first. I think it's in yeah, for Samuel, it talks about like man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks within at the heart, you know.
Yeah.
And I think as Christians in churches sometimes they forget that, you know. They have this look that they want. And so, yeah, my heart behind this is to give you guys a perspective and to give the people that are my guests a voice to share their heart, share their ministry, and share the hard times they've been through too. So, with that being said, Maggie, I would love for you to talk about your story a little bit, how you became a believer, and how you ended up where you are right now.
Yeah, so I had the privilege of growing up in a Christian home, and so, talking about Jesus, talking about salvation and heaven, and, if you don't have salvation, hell being very real, that was a constant for me, and I didn't have to worry about overcoming, like, oh, I've never heard of that before. It was just always ingrained in me, and so when I was really, really little, I thought I was like, oh yeah, I'll get saved, but I was 5, like, I didn't really know what I was talking about, and so I was 11, and I had been talking to my parents, and I was like, I don't think I knew what I was talking about back then, but I do understand now, and so I don't know if that's me being saved for the first time, I don't know if this is me rededicating my life to Christ, but I know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
And it's not, oh, my parents believe this, so I believe this. And so they were like, well, yeah, we can just go talk to your pastor. It's not a certain prayer you have to repeat. It's a belief in your heart, and it's a lifestyle. You're dedicating your life to God, and it's a relationship you're putting time into. And you have to actually believe it. It's not just, oh, like saying I believe it, like with your entire being, knowing that God is real, knowing that the only way for you to escape eternal damnation, eternal separation, that's just agony for eternity. The only way to escape that is by trusting that Jesus was real and that he died and took that pain and that he was a sacrifice so that I don't have to experience that, and accepting that gift and then giving my life over to him. That's the only way. It's not just say a prayer and then you're fixed. And it's a conscious decision every day to continue to die to yourself and give your life over to God. And so there were still some concepts that I don't think I fully understood at 11, but the most important thing I got. And I just continued to learn more and more about God as I grew up. And then shortly after we started GFM, and so it was a band with me and my 2 sisters, and we played music and we would preach from stage and talk about God and be there for hurting people. But we did that for such a long time. I feel like I got burnt out because I was pouring out and I never got filled back up. And it was hard to go to churches because we would be gone for so long, and then when we would come back, there was no community there because they didn't understand the band. And so then when we would go, it was hard to feel safe, to feel welcome. And then even with other churches, it was hard to feel like we didn't have to perform for them. So it was hard to be filled back up. And so for a long time, I struggled with that. And when I was, I think, 19, I think that's when I actually got diagnosed with major depressive disorder. But I had struggled with that for a long time. I struggled with eating disorders. I struggled a lot with body and image and self-esteem. And I had a genuine fear of God, and I was afraid of messing up and afraid of failure, and so I closed myself off from him. And even though I had that relationship with him, it was like being friends with somebody but just ghosting them. And every once in a while you'd be like, hey, how are you, miss you, but then just not talking to them other than that. And so I was running from him because I didn't want to know if I had messed up or not. And I think having that distance caused me to fall into a lot of those things and caused me to have a lot of those issues. And then I actually met Blaise because of touring and stuff, and he helped me understand forgiveness and what unconditional love even was, and how that could even exist. And just through personal experiences with him helped me understand second chances and, you know, communication and how important that was. And so I was able to slowly start talking to God again. And it definitely wasn't perfect at first. It's not perfect now. But there was still that on and off again thing where I would be really, really on fire for God, and then I would get burnt out because I was performing for him. And then in 2022, we decided to put GFM to a stop because I think all of us were burnt out, and all of us felt like we were being called to different areas. We didn't feel like GFM was where we needed to be anymore at that moment. And so that caused a lot of identity issues for me because I was GFM. You know, I was me and my two sisters. There was no me by myself. And I think even my relationship with God was tied into that. And I didn't know how to be Maggie by myself. And then I called Blaise and his family because they're with Seventh-day Slumber and they have a lot of knowledge in the industry. And I was having a lot of like tough conversations with Blaise, and he was helping me have a lot of tough conversations with God and just grieving and mourning with God and trying to understand why this was happening and what the next steps that he wanted me to take were, and just the leaps of faith that he was calling me to take. And I was so scared to do any of that because I had never done anything by myself. And you know, I felt like he was removing me, and I did not want that to happen. I didn't want to be away from my sisters. I didn't want to be away from my parents. And so it was really hard, but I had to have a lot of those conversations with my family then at that point. And so then I moved up to Nashville basically for the entirety of 2023 because we were just touring nonstop. And the whole 7-Day Slumber Rockfest team kind of took me under their wing, and they're like, listen, if you are listening to God's calling, we're going to help you figure out what that means. And, you know, if it's just one song and then you never do music again, like, we're here for it. If you want to do a whole thing, like, we'll figure it out as we go, but you have to make sure you're listening to what God wants you to do, where he has you. And they helped me go to church more. I had found a church back in Florida where I was learning, and I didn't have to be this person. You know, I would be able to go there and kind of just be unnoticed so I could just be with God. And I found a couple different churches like that in Nashville that we would go to whenever we had time off of tour. And I didn't get to go home for like the entire year because we were just constantly traveling, and everything was on my own expense now. And so I couldn't afford to fly back home just for a day and then fly back for tour. And so it was hard to be away from my family. But I think having that distance helped me learn how to be on my own, helped me learn how to cling to God instead of I relied on my family for everything. It's like, well, no, now God is your only family. And it should be that way first. And then you have your earthly family. And anytime that I would try to rely on Blaise and his family, they would push me to God first. And I think that helped me understand what it even meant to rely on God. And I wasn't afraid of having those conversations with him anymore. You know, I had a lot of yelling matches with God. I had a lot of crying and grieving with God. I went through a really traumatic time for 6 months where I didn't sleep because I was being plagued by night terrors, and it truly was an oppression from a spirit of fear. And I had met you, and you were able to pray over me and completely got rid of it.
Crazy.
By the healing power of Jesus. And so I tell everybody from stage, we wrote a whole song about it because it felt like there was no way to escape that. And even when I would listen to sermons when I would go to sleep, you know, they would stop for a brief period, but if my phone even turned off, like the second the sermons were gone, it would come back. And so you were the first one to lay hands on me and pray over me. And of course, I had a whole bus full of people praying over me. But God, in that moment, decided now it is time to be healed.
Yeah.
And just a lot of traumatic things at once were happening. And so I didn't have anywhere else to go but God.
Yeah.
And so instead of just, like, I didn't have the option to keep him at a distance anymore. And so I think it's something God allowed me to go through in order to learn that, because I am very stubborn. I come from a stubborn family, and we have a hard time learning, okay, this is what you don't do. It's like, well, maybe it'll work this time.
Let's just try.
And it pushed me to have that relationship with God. And even now, like, I'll still find myself falling into wanting to be in control of things, wanting to have that stability on my own. But every time I do that, something bad happens, and I'm like, I come running back to God. I'm like, I'm sorry, like, I know I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, that's where we're at now, is just, still trying to figure out what it means to be my own person. Yeah. I just got married to Blaze, and so that's a whole nother, like, identity in itself. But I'm at a really good place, and I actually recently, somebody posted on TikTok, which I know it's like, oh, it's TikTok, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lady who has a YouTube channel, and she posted on TikTok, and she is a prophetess, and she's just started praying over people, and I was one of the first ones she prayed over, and just her prayer talked about things that I had never talked about online, and things that I never told anybody, and, like, I was just bawling the whole time, because I was like, there's no way that this is anything but God talking to me. And she would take a second, and the Holy Spirit would overcome her, and then she started bawling. She's like, I've never felt God, like, speak to somebody this way.
Yeah.
And so I know this is where God needs me to be, where he wants me to be. But it's still hard to trust that sometimes, because I don't know the big plan, and I want things to happen a certain way and at a certain time, and obviously that's not always what God's plan is. And a lot of times he's moving things behind the scenes that I don't see, and I just want it now. Yep. And that's not
I can relate
the
to
best
that.
the best way to do things a lot of the time. But yeah, still just learning to trust God, and obviously we know we can trust God, but applying that is a
Saying
whole
it
different
and doing
thing.
it are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel like I'm really good at it, and then other times I'm like, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it definitely was a journey, and for a long time I struggled with, because I didn't have this big come to Jesus moment. It's like, I didn't struggle with drugs. I didn't struggle with porn. I didn't struggle with boys. Like, I had a pretty clean slate, but a lot of it was up here.
Yeah.
And so now it's not oh, well, I don't have this big come to Jesus moment. It's, no, like, God rescue me from a lot of mental struggles and a lot of trauma that doesn't look bad on paper, but when you go through it, you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty tough.
Yeah.
And even just talking about it, some people might be like, oh, that's not bad. Like, what are you talking about? But I know it'll help somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's why I talk about it. And it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but if somebody went through something similar, or if they're struggling with, oh, well, I never had this big come to Jesus, I just grew up in a Christian home and I believe in God, and maybe it'll help them with their relationship, and maybe it'll help them solidify, like, they don't have to have that big moment. Whatever they're struggling with is valid enough, and God can save them from that, and that's a story in and of itself.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Sorry, I keep wiping my eye. I have really bad allergies, and I didn't take my allergy medicine yet.
It's all
so
good.
It looks like I'm crying, but I'm just like, my eye is watering.
I was squeezing lemons earlier, and just, right in my eye. Yeah. But it sounds like, I don't know, just hearing your story, I love your story, because even in the past, like, year and a half that I've known you, I've seen God completely wreck your world, like, in the best way possible. Just seeing him use people to be like, Maggie, I'm here. Like, I'm here, I'm with you, I hear you. And I know it's hard to get close to Jesus when you're at the bottom, but like, man, that is the place that you feel him the most. Like, you're so desperate, you're so, like, broken that you're like, God, I need you and nothing but you.
Yeah.
So I've definitely been there. Going through stuff that I've gone through in my process in the past 5 or 6 years, where I've had my relationship really be like about God. There's been so many moments where I've hit bottom and I'm like, God, I need you. And he's like, I'm here.
He's like, I was here the whole time.
Yeah, always been here. But yeah, it's just incredible story. And I love, like, again, the people that God has sent you, because I mean, it's got to be lonely sometimes on tour, and like just people that he sent to you that's like, nah, man, like, I know, like, you know, I definitely think that we've developed a friendship over the past year, and just having those people that you're like, hey, I can talk to you. And I think that's important too. Community is huge with me.
Yeah.
And I know you have a community with Seventh Day Slumber and Blaze's family, but having, you know, other believers that are there supporting you and praying for you, I think is really, really important. And it's really cool to see people coming into your life being that for you. Yeah. So, first question. This is where we get real, okay? Why do you think, what do you think some benefits are to having Christian metal concerts at churches?
I think the biggest thing is that it allows people to have a safe space where they don't feel safe. Just from personal experience, being an outsider, not really understanding praise and worship music sometimes, not having that feeling where you want to put your hands up, not having that connection, not feeling like you're part of the group when you go to small groups, not understanding that just solely coming to church because you need to have community with God, and that's kind of it where you're at. You know, having something that you connect with allows you to open yourself up to that community, and you know, sometimes you learn, oh, well, that person's not as stuck up as I thought they were. Like, they like this type of music. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And, like, friendships are made in the, like, least likely of areas.
Yeah.
And, you know, from doing shows like this where churches are bringing in bands like me, bands like Seventh Day Slumber, it allows people who don't go to church to feel comfortable going to church, because, you know, they would have never stepped foot in a Sunday service, in an Easter service, or not a Christmas service. There's too many people there. Definitely not gonna happen. You know, it's like, oh, that's a concert. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, I don't think they're gonna shove Jesus down my throat.
Yeah.
And I want to go to that. Especially with youth group communities. You know, kids want to be able to go to concerts, but nowadays they're so expensive. It's hard to be able to afford something. And so when churches bring in events, it's either really, really cheap ticket prices or free shows. And so it's available. And, you know, not just for kids, but adults too, who grew up going to concerts, and if they just recently got saved, they don't connect with the music there.
Exactly.
Or people in recovery do a lot of recovery group shows, and that's what they're familiar with. And they have all these secular bands that they used to listen to, and some of them don't feel comfortable listening to them anymore, but now there's a huge gap for them to not have anything to fill in, because worship music is great, but it doesn't fill that, because it's not the same. And so providing them with something to fill that with, in order to have music to fill them up as well, it brings a resource that wasn't there. And I feel like I sound like I'm just hating on worship music. I love worship music, but there is a part of me that has a hard time understanding it, because it isn't always everything is great and I love life and my life is perfect, because thank you, God. Sometimes it's just, my life sucks right now and I don't understand why you're doing this, God. And our music is able to connect with that, and we're able to have conversations about that, and we're able to maybe open up a conversation about God that people wouldn't have been open to before. And I think that's why it's super important, but it also opens up people's minds who aren't into that at all. We've had a lot of churches where they're kind of split where half the congregation is like, okay, yeah, we'll bring it in because we want the kids to have it, it'll be fun. And the rest is like, I cannot believe you're bringing these people into this church. But then after the show, after they hear our hearts, after they see people being ministered to, they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe this makes sense.
Yep.
Like, we'll accept, you're the good ones. Like, you're okay.
Yeah.
And so it's been cool to see some people's hearts be changed that way.
Mm-hmm.
And they are able to realize, you know, you can't put God in a box.
Yes.
And there's different ways to reach people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the case, unfortunately. But I think those are the two main reasons. It's just, it brings a new resource and it opens people's hearts.
Yeah, for sure. Just thinking and hearing you talk, I'll never forget, this happened a couple months ago. I'm going to shout out HYM. They had, HYM is Healthy Youth Ministry, so me and my youth group went to a one-day event, and sorry, dude, I forgot your name. You were really cool. But I remember him saying, like, we've got to do better at reaching people that don't go to church. Mm-hmm. Like, we've got to do better at reaching different groups of kids, you know, because there are kids out there that love video games. There's kids out there that love metal music that, you know, like, if you just stick to what you know, like, you're missing this whole, like, way of reaching people that wouldn't normally be reached, you know what I mean? And I think that that's a beautiful thing about having metal concerts at a church is it brings a new group of people in. And again, like you said, like, you don't shove Jesus down their throats, but you have every concert, you have a moment where you talk about, you know, Jesus saving you and how much you love him and everything. So even if it's that split, like, 2 minutes? Yeah. That plants a seed, you know what I mean, that they wouldn't have heard before, you know what I mean? And that's what I think is a beautiful thing. I get it's not everybody's type, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Yeah. I get it. I don't like country music, that's not my cup of tea. But, like, there are kids out there, there are people out there that would come to this show, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Okay. More positive note. What has been a cool Jesus moment you've had at one of your concerts?
So this one happened a while ago, but it's stuck with me because I keep up with this person every once in a while. But we actually had a listener who would come to all our shows, was very active on social media, was a supporter of us, and then after a while it started getting less and less, and then we didn't hear from him for a really long time. And so we're like, oh, well, it just got busy. Sometimes people just kind of, that happens. Like, they'll be really, really good fans, and then, well, not like good fans, they'll be really, like, rabid fans. And then it, like, balances out where they're like, okay, well, I have to go back to the real world. Like, I can't stay in this concert mindset forever. And, you know, if they come to my area, I'll go see them. But, like, I have to be a realistic person. Like, I can't just follow them everywhere. Yeah. And so we just let that happen. But then we get a message from him months later, and he just apologized. He was like, hey, I'm sorry, I attempted to take my own life, and I have just not been in a good place. He struggled a lot with his mental health, and the medication that doctors were giving him were making it worse, and the doctors weren't listening to him, and so it sent him down into a really dark place, and he had attempted multiple times, and he just kept apologizing, and I felt so bad because he felt like he had to apologize to us because he felt like he let us down. And so we tried to just have a conversation with him and reassure him, like, you're still here, and God has you here for a reason. And obviously the conversation went more in depth than that, but I can't remember if he attempted again after that, but I know it was a rough few months, if not a year, for him. And then we saw him at a concert again after that, and I was already kind of touring with Blaze. I wasn't doing my solo project yet, but Blaze was still with us for a lot of the time, and so he was a big fan of Blaze as well, and so we would hang out and talk with him at the table, and we were just like, oh, Morwood, I can't believe you're here, like, we haven't seen you in such a long time. And I used to have a prayer journal, that I would pray for people that I met at shows if they would give me prayer requests. If I knew somebody was struggling, I would pray for them every morning. And I prayed for that guy for at least a year, if not 2 years straight, like every single day. Prayed for that kid.
That's amazing.
And he had told me that he was doing better, that the doctors finally got him on a medication that was working, that was actually helping him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's so great. Like, I've been praying for you, like, every day. And he was like, what? And it took him back, and I feel like my heart broke in that moment, because I don't know if there's anybody else that was praying for him that hard, or if anybody else knew how bad it was for him. And so we were able to keep up, and Blaze was able to keep up with him on social media and stuff, and now he's married. He has a new promotion. Like, he's had a different house in different areas. Like, he's had his own place in several different states.
That's amazing.
I think he's coming to one of our shows this year again. When he found out me and Blaze were engaged, he was like, oh my word! But I like did the same thing when I found out he was engaged, and I was like, this is better than reality TV. And it's just so cool to see healing happen.
Yes.
And I'll call him a kid. I think he's older than me. Like, he's not a kid. But I feel like it's a proud mom moment, because it's just like this person that was struggling so bad and apologized for struggling. Yeah. And it's like, that's not your fault, especially if doctors are making it worse for you and they're not listening. And he was just in a really, really bad spot. To see him thriving now, and it's just awesome to see God work in that way. But yeah, I think that's the biggest one that stands out to me, just because he got married like not that long ago. Like this year he got married, so it's like awesome. A very new thing. I'm still happy every time I hear from him.
That's so cool. I love that. That's beautiful. See, it's just, you never know. Like, to you, probably like praying for him was like not a big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, obviously you were intentional about taking that time to pray and everything, but I bet you never would have guessed how much that meant to him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like you said, you could have been the only one praying for him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I definitely believe in the power of prayer, even if it's one person. You know, I've seen that. I've seen people change because of prayer. So that's just really awesome. All right. This is we're gonna get really real here. Has there ever been a time where you've been hurt or felt judged by a church? What was that experience like?
Yeah. I feel like this is a very common experience for me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But even like whenever I first started touring with a band, like the youth group that we were in was not cool with it. They were very like judgmental about it, and we had to miss a lot of youth group outings. My family was very strict, so we already didn't really go to youth group outings. But with traveling, like, we missed everything then. And like from the pulpit, the youth pastor was like, "Yeah, there's a family here that doesn't go to our youth outings, and they just think they're better than us." Like blatantly. Dang. And I just remember turning to my sisters, and we were like, I'm 12. Like, what? And so, like, it just became something that we were accustomed to. Yeah. Like, we knew churches wouldn't like it or didn't understand it. And so when we found churches that were cool with it or were willing to listen, like, it was the best thing ever. Because we're like, this is awesome. Like, we're able to be in churches. Because, you know, we did a lot of touring, and we still do a lot of touring in General Market and playing clubs, playing venues that aren't Christian, and you know, people that come to the shows, having lots of people is cool, but we're there to reach people. Yeah. And when your own like Christian family doesn't accept you, like, that's heartbreaking, because it's like, do you not see what we're doing? Yeah. Do you not see that we are out here trying to bring more people to Christ, and you hate us for that? Yeah. And you know, touring with Seventh Day has made it like kind of a bigger burden on me, because now I'm connected to their name, and so they bring me on all of their shows that they can, but some shows just cancel because the churches don't like me. And sometimes it literally comes down to the fact that I wear black lipstick and they don't like it.
So
and
crazy to me.
A lot of times, like, especially on this tour, I was extremely terrified because a lot of these shows are en route of where Winter Jam was, and Joseph O'Brien, who's on tour with us, was on Winter Jam, and so they were making it kind of like a Winter Jam, like, reunion type thing. And they're letting me play some acoustic music before. Some of the shows are letting me play full shows. But a lot of them are just acoustic because they wanted me to be able to play shows at least. And, you know, we had to tone down some of the pictures because they didn't want people to see me and not want to bring the show in. And so even just, like, the first week of this tour, like, I didn't leave the bus because I was scared somebody was going to come up to me and yell at me.
That breaks
or
my heart.
like talk down to me, and I would have to defend myself. And I was already, like, in a bad kind of burnout for a little bit because I was discouraged about that, and I felt like if nobody wanted to talk to me, then how was God using me? Like, why was I even at these shows if people didn't like me? And so I was struggling with that, and so I was like, the last thing I need is somebody to come up to me and start badgering me about how I'm not a Christian. And so I just stayed in the bus the whole time, and we actually just had, like, a big conversation about this because we had a little bit of a break, and a lot of it was the devil just trying to lie to me to get me to stop, because he knew that there was going to be somebody at these shows that needed to see Christianity from a different side, and maybe they were the ones who also have church hurt and seeing Christianity as, oh, somebody's been hurt by Christians but they still believe in God, like, maybe I can still believe in God too. And so I was able to kind of get that under control, but there's still a lot of even just messages and comments on social media where it's like, I feel like I have to prove my faith, and I've felt like I've had to prove my faith in God since I was 12, and that's a really hard thing to deal with because, like, I don't, like, why should I have to prove to you? Like, isn't me telling you that I love God enough? Like, just because I look different, like, what does that even mean? But yeah, we've had shows cancel. I've had whole, like, Facebook comment sections, like, explode because they said I was a witch, and they said that I performed witchcraft.
That's
and
insane.
They didn't agree with my outfit choices. They didn't agree with my album covers and stuff. And I would go on and try to defend myself, but at some point, like, you just can't win. And even, like, a lot of people had issues with the Bad Residential cover because there was monsters on there, and and the main, like, person in it was a plague doctor, because I was like, oh, well, because they can be the owner of this house that has monsters in it, because I was like, that was my head. Like, I had terrible things in my head. I had literal monsters in my head that I couldn't get out, and, like, a doctor is supposed to be somebody who fixes that. So, like, wouldn't it be cool that there was a plague doctor who's in charge of all these monsters? And people were arguing me that it was a witch on the cover, and that, like, I can't believe I would promote witch imagery. And I was like, I'm literally the person who made this, telling you that's not what that is. And they were just like, no, it's not. You're wrong. And I'm like, I'm the creator of this. What I say is right. And so at some point, it's just, you get tired of responding to the comments and trying to prove yourself. And, like, I got tired of trying to be somebody I wasn't, because I felt like I was being forced into this box of, oh, I have to post about this stuff and prove that I'm a Christian, so I have to post Bible verses, and then I have to respond to people and, like, oh, well, you're right, like, I probably shouldn't have done that, but this is why. It's like, no, like, you don't have to explain yourself. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. There's nothing wrong with the imagery. I go through, like, an extensive process to make sure there's nothing wrong with what I post, with what I wear. And, like, I have a whole family with 7-Day Slumber that helps me comb through everything to make sure that there's nothing that, like, is weird imagery that goes out, because I don't want to promote that. But yeah, it's it's hard because a lot of times churches don't even want to understand why you would do something. They just see she dresses dark, so she worships Satan.
Yeah.
And that's not the truth at all. And if they would have even a 5-minute conversation with me, they would understand that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people are scared of it because it's different and it's not this cookie cutter Christian way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't think that can be of God. But thankfully, there's a lot of awesome churches that have rallied around me. A lot of them come up to bat for me. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will share my posts if I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with this because this is not me and people are saying this to me. There's somebody now who spells her name very similar to it's Magdalene Rose but with an E, and so it's very similar, and Google thinks we're the same person, and she has a lot of raunchy songs
I
that are
that
very
that,
inappropriate, and I'm like, first of all, I'm not even comfortable talking about any of that stuff. So why would I write music about that?
Yeah.
But also, my page is all about Jesus.
Yeah.
It's all about me working through things and telling my story of how Jesus has saved me.
Mm-hmm.
So why would that have come out
Yeah.
in any like remotely close thing? And if they would click on it, they would realize the name was spelled differently and it's a different person. And like the videos don't have me in them. Like it is a different person singing.
Yeah.
But a lot of churches aren't willing to do that. They just see it pops up and they're like, oh my word, I can't believe you're trying to bring this girl in here. And so when I try to make posts explaining that, a lot of churches now will come to bat for me, and they're like, guys, please do your research because this girl is not who you think she is. She loves Jesus. I hope that you'll have a conversation with her. And it's kind of funny now because a lot of people are like, she's married into the Seventh-day Slumber family. She's obviously a Christian. And so, like, it's just funny because like Seventh-day Slumber is the thing that I think makes me have faith in God. Obviously, like, they're a very outspoken Christian band, so that's what they're trying to get at, but I think it's just funny that they think that means my salvation. Sure. But yeah, it's definitely hard, and it's sad that I have to say that it's something I've become accustomed to and something that I'm just used to, but I know that this is where God has me, and so if this is going to reach lots of people, then obviously Satan doesn't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. And he's going to do anything he can in his power to make sure it doesn't happen. And so that means infiltrating the church and infiltrating anything that would make this prosper.
Yeah.
And also, Jesus literally faced so much persecution. He was literally sacrificed.
Yeah.
And I'm not even anywhere close to that. So if I can put up with a little bit of persecution in order to help people see God for the first time, like, I'm willing to do that. Yeah. Because that's why I'm here.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you are getting persecuted is, I mean, the disciples, Jesus, like, they all got persecuted. Because, you know, the devil didn't want them to succeed, but, like, you're doing something right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just hear you talking about it, I mean, even I have had moments where I'm like, man, this is infuriating. And getting you guys to play in my hometown is what made me want to do this series. If I'm being honest, like, there's been multiple times where I've you know, talked to churches and been like, man, this, like, seriously, this is such a great opportunity. They're just not a good fit for us.
Yeah.
I even had a CR person, and like, what a way, like, Seventh-day Slumber is perfect for CR. Like, their testimony and what they've been through, what he's come out of. Even Lori, Joseph's wife, like, she's an incredible woman. Like, her testimony, like, everything, like, I'm just like, how does that not make sense? Yeah. Like, you're literally looking at someone because of the way they look and saying, nah. Yeah. Nah. I knew this was going to come up. I have my Bible ready right here because I knew this was going to, I just wanted to share this. This is one of my favorite, like, parts of Scripture, and it's in 1 Corinthians. It talks about the body of Christ, and this is something that I preach so hard because I'm like, you guys have to understand that we're all different for a reason, you know what I mean? But my favorite part, it says, "But now God has placed each one of the parts in one body, just as he wanted. And if they were all the same part, where would the body be? Now there are many parts, yet one body." Like, that verse, those verses right there shows you, like, look, yes, there needs to be, like, people like Lauren Daigle. You know, she's bright, bubbly. I love Lauren Daigle. I'm just, shout out Lauren Daigle, like, one of your biggest fans, no joke. Love her, and she fits the role, you know? There are people like, Elevation Worship, Hillsong, like, all of these big, huge people that fit the role. But there are people out there, like, even Christian rap. Like, girl, I love Christian rap. Like, it gets me, I don't like regular rap, but I love Christian rap. And even, I mean, I bet they get persecuted too, you know what I mean? And then you have metal music and rock music, and it's always had this bad perception on it. And it's just like, this is part of the body of Christ. Yeah. Is there bad metal music out there that does not, that blasphemizes Jesus? 100%. But is there country music that does that? Is there rap music that does that? You know, there's bad in every genre of music. Why are you just singling out this? You know what I mean? So, yeah, it just, hearing you talk about that, like, breaks my heart, because, again, like, knowing you and knowing your heart and just having people, like, treat you like that. I'm a nice person. You know, BC Kelly before Christ Kelly was not a nice person. And sometimes whenever I hear stuff like that, you know, Holy Spirit's got to grab me by the collar, because I'm just like, this is so wrong. But yeah, it's just, it's so sad. And again, this is my challenge to the churches, to Christians out there. Like, listen to this podcast, listen to her heart, and, like, you will see, like, just because we wear black does not mean we're satanic. You know what I mean? But we got one last question for you, okay? How have you seen Jesus be glorified through your music ministry? Before you answer, I'm going to answer for you real quick, okay? Your music ministry has helped me in so many ways. Seeing you be comfortable in who you are has helped me. Like, again, I've been in this kind of style, alternative, punky style, since I was like 13. I have been discriminated against many, many times. And even coming in to pursuing ministry, becoming a leader at my youth group, in the beginning, I was like, I have to change myself to fit. I need to fit. And now I'm in a place where it's like, no, God, like, it's not, this is the way I am, you can't change me. It's, this is who I know God has me to be for a reason. Like, this is, I know I am this way because God made me this way. This is the me that I know, like, is the godly me. And, you know, I've been through a lot of phases, but I know now, like, I've seen so many students connect to me because they feel safe, you know what I mean? But you have helped me so much with that, and encouraged me. And another thing, my daughter, like, Echo, shout out to my girl, Echo, the way you have treated her and loved her. And, like, my daughter is one of Maggie's biggest fans, probably maybe even a bigger fan than me.
Love you, Echo.
And to see how you treat her, and just to have someone that she can look up to and be like, hey, because Echo, my girl, she loves black. She likes to be a little punky. To see someone that's like, hey, you can still look like this and love Jesus. That's been huge. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. But now you can say yours. Sorry.
I think the biggest thing recently is, you know, just because I've been talking about my experience with Night Terrors, we wrote the song Bad Residential. People who have experienced that themselves have come up to me, and they have never met anybody who has had that same experience. And so, you know, sometimes it gets trivialized of like, oh, it was just, you have bad dreams. Like, it's what you're intaking. Like, stop watching scary movies, stop listening to that. It's like, I don't do any of that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't watch scary movies. They freak me out.
I'm the biggest baby ever, dude.
Like, I can't do
it.
And, like, I don't even listen to music half the time because we play so much music, I just get burnt out on a lot of it. And so during that time, like, there was no bad intake. Like, there was just no intake because I was numb from a lot of things that were happening in my life. And so I didn't want to partake in literally anything.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these people have a similar experience. You know, some of them are war vets. Some of them are, unfortunately, rape victims. They have terrible family homes. Family members have done things to them that should never have been done to them. I just talked to a woman yesterday who they thought she had brain cancer, and that's what was causing it. But a lot of them are coming to me either after they've been delivered, and they're like, I cannot believe, like, you are sharing our story. Like, we were delivered too. The lady who we thought had brain cancer, her scans came back clear. And instead of she had to take medication every single night for her night terrors, and now it's like twice a week because they're going away, and she's being healed.
That's awesome.
Her church was rallied around her and praying over her, and God is healing her. And they're grateful that their story is being shared because they feel like they went through the exact same thing, and a lot of times it is similar. But then other people are still dealing with it, and they're just glad the story's being told.
Yeah.
And that it's not being trivialized because it is a big deal. It's not just bad dreams. You know, it makes you a paranoid person. Like, I thought, like, I would be hallucinating things during the day, and I would think somebody said something to me that they didn't, or I would take what they were saying to me in the wrong way, and I thought people were just attacking me constantly. And it's very isolating. And so when you find somebody who has gone through something similar to that, you finally have a connection again.
Yeah.
And you know, so these people are able to speak to me, and then they have the strength to speak to somebody else close to them again and open that communication back up. And so that's been the biggest thing recently. I've had a lot of people at shows, like, very recently, just come up to me and talk about that. And, you know, at first when we were first playing it, I didn't have that people just liked the song. But very recently it's been like back to back to back. A lot of people are coming and speaking to me. So it's just been awesome to see that something that I went through that I thought was like the worst thing in my life, and it's like, this is terrible, I never want to speak about this ever again. Like, I want to forget that it even happened. God placed it on my heart to write about it, and it's something I have to relive every single night when we play shows. Anytime I hear it, I'm reliving it, but it's giving somebody else freedom.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome to see just liberation happen. And even if they've already received healing from it, it's their story is being told. And it's not, I don't feel like it's talked about very often because there's bigger problems out there.
Yeah.
And so it's just awesome to hear something that you have struggled with be spoke about.
Yeah.
And to know that healing is possible and that Jesus still does heal people.
Yeah.
And I had somebody ask me if it was true what I went through. And so I don't know if somebody had like made up a whole story, if they heard like a pastor or a speaker or a band member spin a story and say like healing is possible, and then it turns out like none of that actually happened. And so I thought it was so sad that he had to make sure that I was telling the truth and that I wasn't just lying so I could connect with people better.
Yeah.
Because then he opened up with me about how he struggled with them too after he found out that it was honest. And so I think it's just awesome to see God use that. Something that I thought was like absolutely terrible. It was like, God was like, no, just wait. I've got a plan for that down the road.
Yeah, for sure. I shared this with you the night that we talked about your night terrors and everything. But like after I had my first child, my son, I had horrible like PTSD, and like I was terrified to go to sleep, like terrified. And I just remember that's like when I would wake up and I'd be like, not breathing and going through that. When you don't get sleep, you don't understand how much that affects you. It's awful. It affects you spiritually, emotionally, physically, everything. So going through that and then being able to not let it have that control over you is a beautiful thing, because again, like you said, you're taking something that almost completely destroyed you and God healed you from it, and you're able to you're healed enough to be I'm going to write about this and I'm going to try to help people through this. That's so cool. And look at God. I feel like he always does things like that. There's been things in my life where I've dealt with PTSD and suicide attempts and all of those things, and I've been able to be real and talk to students and connect with them because I am healed from that, and I'm in a better place now, and I'm able to look at them and be like, I know what this feels like, but trust me, God can help you, Yeah. So I think that's amazing. One quick thing, if you could say to adult kids, whatever age out there, if they're struggling with not fitting in and feeling I'm a Christian, but I feel like I never fit in, how could you encourage them?
I think just the best place to start is knowing you have a place in God's family, and even if you don't fit in your earthly family, you feel like you're the black sheep of the family, God has his hand over you. You have been adopted into his family now that you have accepted him, and he will never leave you. You always have a constant companion, a constant friend, and he's there with you, battle ready to go to war with you. And there are people that are like you who are in this together. I have social media, Kelly has social media. We want to be there for people. We have communities where you can fit in, and even if you never meet those people in person, at least online you have somebody physically here on this earth who has been in your shoes and is willing to stand by you, be your friend. And sometimes it just takes a little bit to find those people. And just from personal experience, waiting is the worst thing on earth. I don't know why God invented waiting.
Patience, man. Who needs it?
I hate patience with all of my being. But it is what you need to continue to get through this until you find those people who are willing to love you for who you are. Yeah. And it's not just like you were saying, well, this is just who I am and I can't change that. If there are parts of you that are not honoring God, you got to cut those off.
Yeah.
Because that is your problem then. But if it's just because of the way you look, that is not an issue that affects your salvation. And there are so many people who are there willing to love on you. There are churches out there willing to love on you. And it just takes some time sometimes to find those people. But keep fighting, because it's so worth it. When you have that community, when you feel that warmth of family love, it's so much better than the alternative, just giving up, taking your life. Please, I beg of you, never turn to that step, because it's not worth it. And the love and joy you can experience on the other side of your pain, on the other side of your hurt, is better than any happy fleeting moment that you had before when you were in your hurt. I can't explain the joy that I have now that I've healed, that I've found people. It doesn't even match what I used to think was happiness. And it's worth it to keep pushing through. God is there with you every step of the way, and sometimes it's literally you crawling inch by inch just to get through the day. But every day is progress. Every day is a victory that you are still here. And so please continue to fight. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Kelly. We would love to have you in our family. And it's not just oh, hey, send us a message. Like, that's whatever. Like, we'll get to it. We want to know you. We want to have you as part of our community. And, it's important. Community is important because it's really easy to shut people off after you've been hurt. But community is necessary.
Yeah.
So keep fighting, keep pushing, keep wanting that community, and keep being who God created you to be, because it was not a mistake. No matter how many people tell you, it was not a mistake. God made you a certain way to reach a certain people, and He has your plans set out for you. And when you experience them, when you finally get to them, it is such an awesome experience.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. That was good. About to call you Pastor Maggie over here. She's preaching. So we're at the end of the episode. I wanted to give you an opportunity to, like she said, she would love for you to reach out. And I can 100% say that's how our friendship started, is us messaging through Instagram and, connecting and everything. She really does answer people. So how can we follow you? Where can we find you?
So we made it really easy. Everything is the same thing. It's official Magdalene Rose. You just have to remember how to spell Magdalene. If I did it in kindergarten, you can do it as well. But everything is that. Everything is linked to everything too.
Yeah.
So like, you just click the Linktree thing and it has all of our other links. We even have a Discord, so if that's your type of thing, like, we've got a whole group of people there that love to send memes that don't always work and load the right way. And I asked them if they wanted me to fix it, and they said no, it's just part of the charm.
Yep.
But we're on literally everything. We film YouTube videos, so if you're not comfortable messaging people because that's scary, you can at least feel that you are part of being on tour. You can experience the behind the scenes things, and it's not just, oh, we post so we can get engagement. It's like, no, like, we do this so we can interact with you guys. We want to get to know you. And our DMs are always open. If you feel more comfortable commenting, just like having banter, like, we're here for it. Just so you can have somebody to talk to throughout the day. And if we don't answer right away, we have a crazy tour schedule, so you might get an answer at 3 a.m. And if you message me at 10 a.m., you might not get an answer until 6 p.m.
She's asleep.
But yeah, official Magdalene Rose is everything. Everything is linked there. And all my friends are linked in the posts everywhere, so feel free to reach out to them too, bother them.
Yeah.
And then tell them that I sent you.
All right, one more thing. I mean, you got any exciting news, tour dates, music, anything?
Yeah, so we're currently on tour right now.
Yeah.
With me, Joseph O'Brien, and Seventh Day Slumber. So that's throughout the entire month of June. And then we are booking out our July. We've got festival dates. And then August, I think we're doing another, or at least talking about another Winter Jam reunion type tour. And bringing out maybe somebody else from that tour. And then in the fall, I'm going out with Seventh Day Slumber and Disciple. And so if you are a big Christian rock fan, like, that's definitely the one you want to go to. They haven't done a tour like that since City Rock Fest, which is like 2018, I think. So this is going to be like a really big deal. It's a really big deal for me because it's like, oh, well, I never got to go on City Rock Fest. I never really got to go to City Rock Fest as a fan. And so now I get to be part of one, and we come out to our merch table because we want to meet people. And it's not just this big, like, you have to buy VIP and you only get to take a picture with them and then you get out. It's like, no, like, we play the show and then we come and we hang out with you guys. And I think that's the coolest thing because we get to have actual conversations. Like, we take pictures, people bring us drawings. We get to, like, sign things, but also, like, when people give us stuff back to keep, I feel like that's the awesomest thing. Like, I keep everything. Like, I'm such a hoarder. Like, even if someone is like, here, I have this wrapper and I drew a picture of you on it, I'm like, I keep those. And I think that's the best thing, is just getting to interact with you guys in person. So those dates are going to be announced really soon. We have some that are already established, but they're trying to get, like, all of them booked before we push out all of them.
Yeah.
But we're trying to go all over the U.S., so if you are in a state and you want that tour to come in, hit me up and I'll give you the people that you need to contact, and we can work on getting something at your church or at your recovery group or even if it's messaging your favorite like local venue that doesn't always do Christian music, we can figure that out too. But yeah, we got that, and new music is on the way. So everything is being sent off to be mixed and mastered. There's a whole album coming, but we are just not sure on release dates yet. So
Cool. All right. Well, that is the end of our episode. Thank you so much for coming on here. Go do something nice for someone. Be good. Spread Jesus' love.
pay it forward. Pay for somebody's coffee.
Yeah. Or food.
Or their
whatever.
McDonald's.
Yeah. All right. We out of here.
Thank you for tuning in to Kelly's Christian Chaos. Be sure to follow us so you never miss an episode. We'll be back soon with more thought-provoking conversations. Take care and go do something nice for someone. We out.